welcome to the Rotating Purpose Podcast with your guest hosts today, Brandy and Craig Elias. We're going to talk to Randy today about his process from starting his very first business to dipping his toes into a technology company and doing more and more crazy things that entrepreneurs tend to do. As I mentioned, I'm joined here by Craig. I'll let him say a little hello and then we'll jump into it.
Hi, everybody. My name is Craig Elias. I sometimes describe myself as the other half of the Brandy and Craig show, and today I'm the other third of the Randy, Brandy, and Craig show.
So Randy, thanks for joining us in the hot seat today.
Thank you very much, and thank you guys for just deciding to do this. Flip the script a little bit. It'll be a lot of fun.
Looking forward to it. So my first question for you today, Randy, is just really like, how did you get started? You were an employee and then something happened that flipped a switch in your brain to go, I don't need another job. I want to start a company. Where did it all start?
Yeah, so it honestly started probably back in 2006, I would say. You know, when I happened to lose my job at Desert Bloom Golf Course at the time. You know, and when you're mid-season in the golf course industry, the opportunities are not abundant in front of you. So I ended up going to take a job actually with Grassroots Landscaping. And it was really just to get through what was left of the summer and fall of 2026. You know, I had the misfortune of walking through the door and telling my wife, my 3-year-old and my 3-month-old, that I had lost my job. We had no idea what direction life was going to take us in. And for me, I just took full advantage of the opportunity that Ron gave me, and, you know, grabbed a rake, a shovel, a jumping jack, and away I went. It was not without a significant amount of comedic moments in my journey from managing to raking. However, you know, it has made me stronger. And over the next 14 years working there, right up until 2020, Ron was really good at giving, you know, a lot of flexibility in I guess, creating entrepreneurial situations, and really letting me take the bull by the horns in a few different areas. And as things progressed closer to what ended up being the fall of 2020, when he decided it was time to transition ownership, you know, there were a lot of things that started to just fall into place. But that being said, I really had no idea what was going to come in the fall of 2020 when he just literally walked in one day and said, it's time to get the ball moving on this. So yeah, my first entrepreneurial experience wasn't so much starting a company, it was taking over an existing and one that I had been in for 14 years.
So you're taking over this company. What made you decide to do, like, help us understand that process to go from employee to owner?
Yeah, and I think a big part of it, I can honestly say, is I've had the entrepreneurial bug in my DNA. You know, I grew up with a father who was an electrical contractor in Calgary. It just, I don't know. Yeah, both me and my wife, to be honest with you, we both have that part of our DNA where you're just going to do whatever it takes, no matter, you know, whether you're a wage salaried employee. So for me, you know, the step from that to ownership was honestly incredibly simple. In fact, I would go so far as to say it was quite liberating, because it now really did feel like all the work you were putting in, you know, you were hopeful that there were going to be benefits coming out of it on the back end for you. But that being said, it came with a lot of scary moments as well when you go through this process of buying a business and you realize that all the different things you can put your financial situation on the line for. So intimidating, to say the least. So Randy, I want to kind of dig in a little bit, because you said a couple things that really stood out to me that I hear very often around. It was super scary to take the jump. So you're bidding your house, your family, you've got all this stuff going on, but it's also super liberating. And I just want to dig a little bit more into, like, what was that experience like for you with putting up that much risk and still being able to, like, be excited and have that liberation to talk about? Yeah, it's actually kind of funny, because when we first started down this process in the fall of, I guess, and I was wrong, it was fall of 2019, my apologies. I didn't really know what was coming, right? You know, it's all of a sudden you're approaching lending institutions looking for financing. And as for me, when I was going through all that, you know, they start asking some pretty challenging questions and some ones that can be, you know, eye-opening to say the least, when they're asking how much you're going to contribute and you're kind of looking at the mothballs flying out of your pockets. And you know, but going through that, I guess while it was scary, I knew it was such a good opportunity. You just wanted to navigate it as best you could, right? And you know, it was also interesting in the sense that buying a business from somebody I'd worked for 14 years, I think, you know, Ron was incredible, gracious through the whole process, but it still had a lot of tense moments. And I think the liberating side well outweighed for me the fear side, and I can comfortably say that because I knew deep down that I was going to do whatever it took to make sure it continued to be a success. You know, Grassroots has at that point had been around for 44 years. And so for me, it was, what is it going to take to bring this thing into the next 50 years and beyond, and, you know, do what I can to build something generational for within my own family. So I think for me, it was just that mental part of my head, knowing I was going to outwork any of the fear that I had.
I love that.
That's interesting. Because here's the thing I think about, Randy. You put all this stuff up, and the question I have is, how do you get your head around the fact you need to learn to play to win, not learn to not play not to lose? That's a interesting dynamic. How did you manage that?
Yep, that's a mind bender, and I won't lie. There are still probably moments where you end up in that cautious, don't play to lose, or contracting is an interesting thing. When, you know, Grassroots Landscaping does a lot of commercial municipal work, right? So everything we do is tendered. You know, it was one of those things where I had such a good foundation of what I was stepping into, but then COVID hit. And so when I bought Grassroots, not only did COVID hit in March of 2020, and we were very, very close to having the final deal done. The goal was to have it finished before we got the season kicked off. But I was also buying a business where we literally had not one single project on the books. My prospects for 2020 were zero at that time. Now, historically, of course, financial statements said you'll be fine. And 5 years later, you can guess we were. But, you know, you couple those two things together, and I remember going into banking institutions and they're going, okay, so what do you got on the books for next year? And I said, nothing, zero. And, you know, we don't have continuing contracts, and we'd happen to wrap everything up. It was actually really a great scenario because it made the transaction very clean. But, you know, but then when COVID hits and you realize, I don't even know if we're going to get back to work this year, it was a pretty interesting moment. But we ended up getting the deal done by June of 2020, June 11th to be exact, is when the official day came. And it was through a lot of hard work on the part of my partner over at BDC that saw that one get across the goal line.
So how did you know the time was right? Because I think that's one of the challenges a lot of entrepreneurs have, especially the first time. Like, is now the right time? Should I wait? Like, how did you decide that was the right moment?
The way I'm going to put this is, it was my time. To me, it didn't have anything to do with being right or being wrong. It was my time. That was the opportunity that was being put in front of me in that moment. And there was nothing that was going to get in my way to stop me from doing it. So I was ready. The family was ready. They were in a good space. Kids were a little older. Everything just lined up, right? I can't imagine trying to do this. I feel very fortunate to not having had to do this when the kids were young. I can only imagine the stress it would have on a young family. But for me, everything just aligned. So yeah, definitely not a question of if the timing was right. It was just, it was my time.
I'm gonna maybe compare you to a seafarer almost, right? It's like, it's time, my ship's built, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
And you just took a bet on yourself, which is really hard to do. And I keep hearing you talk a lot about how important your family is.
Yep.
So I want to dig into that a little bit, because we know entrepreneurship can be lonely, but you're not doing it on your own. What ways has your family like helped you? And you talked a little bit about timing, but what resources are you drawing in from your family to really help you strengthen your entrepreneurial roles?
Well, I think the biggest one, so I'm lucky. I get to work with both my kids. Both my kids work in both the businesses now. One's Nora's 22, Elias 19. But at the end of the day, I think the person that does the most work in the business without even really getting a lot of credit for it is my wife, Leanne. To have that person at home that just lets me go and do all the crazy things that I want to do, which seem to increase over time, not decrease, especially at a point in life at 51 years old, where the easiest thing for me to do, honestly, when I bought the business would have say, this is my retirement plan. I'm going to ride this out for the next 10 to 15 years, probably do okay, and be able to just call it good, right? But that, because I was late getting to the party, that was never an option for me. Like, we were going to grow, we were going to do crazy, special, fun things. And she has supported that craziness every single step of the way. And now she supports it with all three of us. So yeah, family's huge, but having that important piece of the puzzle back at home is probably hands down the most important piece.
Yeah, I keep thinking Craig and I interviewed Noam Wasserman for Founder Fridays, and one of the biggest red flags, I think he always told us, is like, don't start a business with your family. It's the most complicated relationship. Things fail all the time. So it's funny to see something successful, and I think Alberta's really good at this, right? We've got some amazing family-owned businesses that have been around for generations. I picked up earlier, you talked about trying to build a legacy, and I think that's a big differential between starting a company and now your kids are part of it. So as your business is growing and they're working in the company with you, I'm just curious, like, how are you seeing that vision of your legacy transition as the years go on and you see your kids get a little more involved?
Yeah, I think for me, legacy is kind of two different things. One is, I think there's a legacy of the business. Grassroots has been in the Medicine Hat community for soon to be 49 years. And then you can also say your personal legacy, right? I would say from the business standpoint, I think, I would love to see it continue on. I think if you can hit a 100-year company, that's something extremely unique. But what I've realized in that is it's only going to be done through the people. And so that kind of ties back into my personal legacy. And for me, one day when I'm pushing up daisies, I hope they can say this guy did everything he could to develop great people. And because I think great people are going to do great things in business, in community. We have a luxury with doing what we do. Like, when we build green spaces, right? And so every single thing we do touches people in the communities we work in. And it can be an incredible uplifting thing to have that opportunity to do those things. So we've really just tried to make that a part of our everyday fabric around here. All the people we hire have a good understanding that everything we are doing here is building a better community. So my legacy, I guess, Brandy, would be one day my kids understand why I'm doing this, and then they can pass that down, God willing, as well to theirs. But just be a servant, do it for the right reasons. Don't do it to just put cash in the bank, because that's the wrong reason.
So I heard you say you were late to the party. So I'm curious around two things. One, what are the benefits of going late? Mm. And how do you find a way to pass those benefits on to your kids when they're starting early?
Start a podcast. That'll at least put them in therapy. So yes, late to the party. You are right. I was 46 when I bought Grassroots, and there was definitely a question in my mind when I went, is this too late? When you're looking at the financial commitment and that financial commitment is only going one way. It's not going in the positive. It is debt upon debt upon debt. And so that was definitely something we thought of. But that being said, you're only 46. And I think getting started later, I was very fortunate to have the 14 years working for Ron. I had always had that entrepreneurial bug. Everything I did, whether, it was starting a turf club at Olds College with a group of guys, sitting on boards of directors for my kids' activities growing up, like it was, it all kind of helped shape me into who I was getting ready for this moment. And then being able to lean on and leverage the great people I had around me. I got, even between my family and my wife's family, everybody's an entrepreneur. I got plumbers, electricians, framers, so they get it. They understand the commitment, the hours, and everything it takes to run a business. But yeah, it's just fun, Craig.
So now you're onto something new.
Yes.
So there's this journey of becoming an entrepreneur for the first time, and now you're going to be this serial entrepreneur. You're going to run 2 businesses. When you went looking for your additional business, I'm curious, what made you say, I want to do a second one? And what were you looking for on the second one?
Yeah. So if you actually go back to, I think it was episode 2 or 3 of the podcast, Ken Vowles, he came on. So Ken is a very good friend and a mentor of mine. He works up in Calgary at Site One Landscape Supplies. So they're a vendor of ours that we use for our irrigation and landscaping supplies. And Ken had really, really been in my kitchen about getting after water management. He said, this is the future. This is the future. You got to do it. And I remember asking him, okay, if this is such a good idea, why aren't you doing it? And he said, I'm almost 60. It's too late for me. What I now know is he didn't want to spend the money. But so Ken is really the one that catalyzed it. And I remember we had I had brought him into a brainstorming session for some strategic planning on the marketing side for grassroots landscaping. It was April of 2024. And I asked him to come in because he knows the industry well, the players and everything else. And he completely hijacked that marketing strategy session. And I left that saying, okay, we got to look for somebody we can help manage their system. And we did that in June of 24. We linked up with the city of Brooks, and we said, okay, if this water management avenue is a real thing, taking over a cloud-based controller, managing it from afar, providing them the data to be able to make better decisions in the field, then this is our opportunity to try it. And lo and behold, 4 months later, in September of 24, it was a resounding success. And then we incorporated Grow in October of 24 and put an amazing team together, like crazy, wild, great team, of which my son is a part of, Elias. And yeah, it's been interesting. I will say that. Taking over a company that's been around for 44 years is a heck of a lot easier than starting one. That I don't think anyone can ever oversell on how hard it is. Everything you think you might as well throw out the window. And I'm learning terminologies and things that I never even knew existed. Craig, you and I are spending some time right now working on a pitch, and I never thought for a second I'd ever be sitting here thinking about elevator pitches and pitch contests, and yeah, it's been crazy. But on the other hand, the fun behind it has just been great, because all of a sudden, I'm not going to say it was a catalyst for the podcast, but when you start thinking about building a business from the ground up, one thing that I take true to heart is, your business is only going to be as big as your network. And so for me, it really came down to how on earth am I going to build my network, and building it through exposure and everything else. So whether it was getting in front of an audience with a microphone in my hand, doing speaking engagements, a podcast, hiring an amazing lady to run my LinkedIn profile, just everything I can do, again, because I feel I'm late to the party. I feel my runway is a lot shorter than somebody in their 20s or 30s, right? So I'm trying to do everything in 2 years that someone else could probably take 5 to do. But because of that, it's, sometimes creates a little chaos like I'm in this week. But at the same time, I still do it with a smile on my face.
You can see it right now. No. So I don't know if I want to burst your bubble or not, Randy, but I'll give you something to chew on. So StatsCan has some data. the average age of an entrepreneur in Canada is 42. So yes, you're late to the party, but only by a few minutes.
But I probably only look 42, so really.
Exactly, you fit in.
Check.
But I do like, your focus on this piece of urgency that you've kind of created for yourself to keep the momentum going. And I heard this transition, and this happens often when you move into adjacent spaces with different businesses. A lot of owners go like, man, I got kicked to the curb on the second business. I thought I was smarter, better, faster than everyone. So just, if we've got some listeners maybe that are thinking about doing this a second time, what do you think your biggest blind spot was?
Thinking I was right. Thinking I knew what the problem was, to be totally honest with you. Brooks was the exact example of that. 4 months, we had an amazing success. The operational team was fully on board. We went into that fall. We gave them a proposal. They had signed off on it. We were going to get 12 sites. It was that easy, right? Right up until it hit the manager's desk, and then it was all over. And that was the moment where you went, oh, now what, right? And then it became a pretty big soul-searching session. I actually got to sit in on your guys' Perfect Your Pitch back. It was in the winter of last year. Ended up going to CTAC West. And that was a moment where, in talking to people that had been through this, where you realize it does not matter what you think the solution is if you aren't asking what the problem is. And that was the hardest part for me, was realizing my blind spot, Brandy, was the fact that I had worked in this industry for 20 years and I knew everything. And I knew it better than everyone else knew it. Mm-hmm. And having to fall back now and go, okay, pause your ego. While you still may know it, you need to confirm that your thoughts are actually correct. And the only way you can do that is to ask honest questions. And that has been extremely hard, but it's an everyday adventure.
Well, and now you're so good at asking questions, you have a podcast. So these fun things that come out of it.
Although it's actually funny, I'm watching you guys host me and I'm like, dang, they're a lot better than I am.
We always good at critiquing ourselves, right?
Yeah.
So, it's interesting. You go from like a green space creation to the software technology that's managing it. And I think it's so interesting that you've gone from, I'll say, like fingers in the ground to tech. Yep. And you talk a lot about like consistent values around the culture of people. And I'm just curious, like, how do you as a leader keep those values and that purpose from your first business into what your new venture is?
That's a great question. We are very intentional with our culture and our values in GRL. And the good thing, I guess, and it gets even harder because we use a lot of gig workers in Grow. And so that gets even more challenging. The Elias is in office, so, and he lives at home still, so he hears enough, I assure you. Probably too much. But for the others, it really still involves very intentional conversations and them really gaining an understanding of somewhat who I am. Like, values are really just a derivative of what the leader is, right? We can set mission, vision, values as a group, and I believe that's a thing. But if the group is saying the values are this, but the leader doesn't believe in it, they're never going to succeed. So I always look at it as the values are exactly a carbon copy of who that leader is. So it just takes a little bit of time. It just takes, being honest with the people you're working with, and I would say not just the people you're working alongside, but also the ones you're bringing on as clients. Not everybody's a great fit for a client either. Sometimes you got to walk away from ones when they don't check your boxes as they should. So the values journey has probably been by far the most enjoyable one over the last 5-6 years for me, hands down. Yeah, and we're seeing like noticeable change start to take place around here.
So here's the thing I'm super curious about. You've got this new business, lots of learning, super exciting. Like, how do you find a way to not lose focus or even get bored with your first business?
Right now, I had an opportunity back in March of last year. I went and bought a lunch with Andrew Wilkinson. He's out in Victoria. He wrote the book Barista to Billionaire. And one thing he told me at that lunch was you have to figure out how to fire yourself. You've got to go from working in the business to on the business. And that has been a significant mandate for me over the last 9 months, call it. We're doing a lot better than we were 9 months ago. And I would say by this time next year, it's going to look a lot different yet. But it really does start with the people. It's easy not to get bored in your business when you're doing the things you love in your business. I love being the visionary for grassroots landscaping. Like I have, again, when we talk about growth and scaling and everything else, we have a corporate vision for where we want to go. But as long as I'm touching as many things as I'm touching right now, we're not going to be able to achieve it. So I'm not bored with it. In fact, I would say I would be looking to get a little more bored with it if I possibly could, just so I could do the things I really, really love. And we're close. I will say that we're very close. We've got an incredible group of people this year, and which was a significant turnover from last year. So, I need one more piece to the puzzle right now, and then somebody will move on, and then I'll need that piece to the puzzle too. So, right people, right bus. Thank you, Jim Collins.
One more piece of the puzzle. Can you, how much can you tell us about that one more piece of the puzzle?
Oh, I'd love to. Can we use this as an advertisement?
Go.
So Gino Wickman, Traction, I'm sure you guys have heard of it, obviously. So we're running out the EOS system right now at a leadership level. We haven't brought it down into the rest yet till we get comfortable with it. We've been doing it about 6-7 months now. And one of the pieces I'm missing in there is the integrator. So if you want to call it the COO. Incredibly hard position to fill in a small business. And because for me, we look at it as a leadership group and go, this isn't a full-time position. But if you want to grow, again, Mr. Collins, you got to get the right people in the right seats before you can even decide where you're going. What does that look like, right? So right now I'm in the space of trying to see if there's a fractional option available for a COO. I actually caught myself recently just again going, oh, maybe this person's a good fit, but then having enough common sense to run that through a few other filters that I have in my network and them saying, I think you're missing it on this one. So yeah, I'm exploring the fractional with the hope of, one day being able to support a full-time COO. And then the question becomes, we're in Medicine Hat. Like, these are the moments I wish I was in Calgary, right? Because Calgary, the options are, I'm not going to say they're endless, but they're far more abundant. Medicine Hat, it's a little more challenging. So then not only are you looking possible fractional COO, but now you might be fractional gig COO, who's not even in the city you live in, right? So, but I don't see that as being a huge sticking point, to be totally honest with you. I love my gig workers.
Yeah, they're definitely valuable. Craig, you look like you had something to say.
No, I think you're on with the next question. Well, actually, now that I think about it, so I don't want to steal the thunder. So I'll let you ask your question. Then I'm going to hold mine back.
Okay.
To let you have, right? Give you some equal airtime. Because it's 2 against 1.
Yeah, I know. We're teaming up on you, Randy, this time.
I love it.
So, I had a different question queued up, but I want to go in this route because I'm listening to you talk about this rural-urban divide, and it's something that I think can be missed or seems as a disadvantage, right? Folks might be starting a company in Medicine Hat and they go, well, I just need to move to Calgary because I can't find the people. So, how do you manage that retention and sticking in your community and actually being able to hit those growth targets that you're trying to look to?
Well, the good news is nobody's starting a business in Medicine Hat, so not a lot of competition coming in here. Honest to goodness, it is one of the most frustrating things right now as not only a resident but a business owner here. For whatever reason, this city is just incredibly stagnant. We aren't growing. Business isn't coming here. We had a few hopes and dreams when the pot thing was going on with Aurora. That fell through. But right now, I think I just actually read in October, housing starts were down from last year, and last year there were only 8. So
Okay.
Ooh, exactly. And then the next article I read 2 down was Lethbridge is doing a $300 million West Side development. So, when I look at growth for grassroots, number one, Medicine Hat could never sustain the operation we have here. It never really has been able to. So it's always been looking outside of the boundaries and traveling for work. So interesting though. We always thought, or I thought I should say, that the place to go, Calgary's booming, Airdrie, Cochrane, like that whole area is just off the Richter scale right now from a development standpoint. I think a little bit riding on a bubble, but TBD at this point. But we actually, the last 2 weeks, we went to the AB Munis Conference and RMA Conference in Edmonton and Calgary. And we actually went there for Grow, to kind of get some exposure, get in front of some CAOs and mayors. Probably one of our single biggest takeaways from that was the need of the smaller centers for a full service contractor. So we actually walked away from there going, we just had our last EOS meeting, our quarterly one, and went, now what? Like, we need to kind of revisit what this strategic growth plan is. Because, why go into a market in Calgary where it's uber competitive? Like, we are a pre-qualified contractor with the city, but it's a different beast to go up there, right? Or do we look at what is this rural situation going on right now? Probably a longer sales cycle, because it's going to be a lot more touch points, because, they don't even know necessarily what they need quite yet. But it feels better in my stomach. So now we're just exploring. We're like, we don't know what we're doing, but that's the nature of the beast, right? You're going, so if you're in Medicine Hat, yes, we are rural 100%. And it is not booming here at all. And so we are constantly looking for options and alternatives to find more work and grow the business. We were working in Edmonton the last 2 years. I got guys in Picture Butte right now at the golf course. Like, we're out and about. I had more work the last 2 years outside of these city limits than I had inside. So,
yeah, it resonates with me. When I moved here to Lethbridge, people always called Lethbridge Death Bridge. It's like a place where you go to die.
Oh. Now it's Meth Bridge.
Or that, right? I know, right? We have the best names here. But it is interesting because there's this kind of provincial piece that in Southern Alberta we're sleepy. Yeah. And then folks come down and they're like, oh, you guys you have cool businesses here. You do stuff. I'm like, yeah.
Well, and that's it. Like, I spend a lot of time on the highway between Medicine Hat and the Crow's Nest Pass this year. And, like I said, it's frustrating for me as anything because, you drive as far as Bow Island, Tabor, and you see development happening all over the place. And then you come home and you're like, what's happening? And we have these conversations as business owners and everything. Now, the only thing I could possibly pin it on is we had a lot of disarray in our city council over the last 3 years. Like, we were in the news for all the wrong reasons. And new council, hopefully new vision, hopefully a little bit more of an aligned vision. But if we don't start focusing on how to get people here and build business in this community, it's going to be a struggle. I think we grew by 11 3 years ago on the local census. So I didn't even know they counted that low.
People might be, the mobility, there's a lot of promise down in Southern Alberta with less competition, easy driving, and especially with, virtual businesses, you can kind of work from anywhere.
Well, and affordability, Brandy. Like, I'll just chime in on that. So Medicine Hat, because I don't want to slam Medicine Hat. I've lived here for 20 years. I love the city. I'd love to see more people come here. We were the third most affordable city in Canada. So there's great reasons to come here. Sometimes we just got to find a reason to get people here, though, right?
Yeah.
That aren't 82. Well,
you're going to take all that money and you're going to get yourself in debt by starting a business.
Yes, exactly. 100%.
That's the sales pitch for Medicine Hat.
Yep.
Love it. So you talk a lot about, you've been on the road a lot. You got a lot going on. And I know you're very, I'll say, like, purpose-driven person. And I always, get curious about when the grind gets tough and you're going out and you're testing all these new things. Like, when do you decide it's time to let one of those opportunities go that you have as some initial discovery? What's that tipping point?
again, I would say the tipping point for me is ensuring that I'm talking it through with people that I trust. I actually just let one go. We were looking at an expansion opportunity in Calgary, and I've walked away from it. Just, wasn't checking the right boxes. If I would have done it, it would have been an ego drive. I'm not going to say it wouldn't have been a good business to buy. I think it is a good business, but it wouldn't have been a right fit. So it would have been a taking focus off of where it should have been. So, but that comes through multiple conversations with multiple people. Allowing those people you've surrounded yourself with to actually have valuable input with you and not just let your ego drive.
Yeah, or that ooh shiny syndrome.
Ooh shiny. Yeah, the new shiny thing. And I was stuck in that for sure. I was like, I went through 2 meetings, and again, great business, but knowing, ending where we ended now, I knew early on. It's just I didn't have the capabilities at that point to turn away from the shiny object.
So you've gone from this business that is very manual and labor and equipment, and now you're getting into this software and services thing, which now provides all these opportunity geographic expansion without having to drive to all these places and go somewhere. That's a big transition. How did you get to say, hey, I want to leave this behind and go after that instead?
The cool thing about technology is I think it is infiltrating all businesses right now, right? So Grow very much is that managed service cloud-based thing, right? So it is, you can be anywhere, we can be here, and we can be managing it. And that had a massive, massive appeal. But what I'm also finding now is that technology is infiltrated extensively into the GRL side of things as well. We're just embracing it, right? I've brought on the gentleman we started working with at Grow on our automations and IT side, a guy by the name of Brian Bates, Cogitac up in Calgary. He added such a value to Grow that I'm like, this guy needs to find some touch points within GRL, and now he's sitting at the leadership table there. We realize that if either business is to grow, automations, IT, technology has to be at the forefront of every decision we make. If we aren't, we're just getting farther and farther behind. So it's actually really fun, to be honest, how we've been able to learn so much over the last 14 to 16 months because of Grow. And now we happen to find a person that can bring all that cool stuff he knows here into the 49-year-old business. So that part's been just an absolute blast.
I just looked up the population stats for Medicine Hat, and that 11-person growth number was between 2016 and 2021, a 5-year span. but from 2023 to 2024, we had 1,600 people.
Oh,
wow!
Okay.
I think that's an estimate because that's from the Alberta government website. So.
And did they say how many died? Because I think all of those might have been 82 or older, and they all live on my block.
Yeah, there's been significant growth between 2022 and 2024.
Interesting. All right, there we go.
Well, that beats our 2% growth rate in Lethbridge consistently.
Yeah. That's
Randy,
interesting.
here's my last question.
Yeah.
Here's my last question. So going remote creates all these awesome opportunities when you live in a smaller or have a smaller town. The question then becomes, how do you find a way to convince your customers that are remote that doing business with somebody out of town is in their best interest?
Ooh, that's a really good one.
Because you've got a few, right?
Yeah,
You've done
we do.
Something right.
We do. And I think that's probably been the hardest thing to learn with Grow. And I think, again, Craig, it goes to, I made a lot of assumptions early on that I knew all the answers. I think the one thing that I hadn't quite grasped because of the contracting background was the need to build trust. Contracting's a weird one, right? You're low price, you get the bid. It's changing a little bit, but not a lot. And I don't think trust and contracting, those two words aren't really synonymous with each other. I'm trying to change that too. We can do that another day. So good luck. I think that was probably the biggest thing was, if somebody trusts you, they're willing to work with you wherever you are. As long as you are solving a problem that they have and you can communicate appropriately with them, I think anybody will work with anybody. And I think we're all getting pretty trained right now into realizing that there's great people all over this planet. And if someone can get me what I need, I'll talk to anybody.
I really like that you've embraced that learning, Randy. I think that's probably, I don't know, Craig, you'll probably agree with me. Maybe I'm wrong. I think that's one of the hardest things to get entrepreneurs to do is like go out and actually talk with people to build their solution with them and build that trust early on. And like, hey, I'm going to throw this idea at you. I don't know you. How do I actually like work with you? So maybe can you walk us through a time that you did that with someone and you got a positive response, maybe that you weren't necessarily expecting?
Well, yeah, I'm going to actually share the first one I want to share is when I thought I was doing it and I got a horrible response. And that was sitting down with a municipality. We won't name names, but not the one I live in anyways, but it is in Selwyn, Alberta. Someone else might live in that's in this call right now. Yeah. But I actually went into that and I was invited in to talk about Grow. We had just looked at doing a pilot project with them and we had the room full of people. It was great. I thought it went incredibly well. And within 48 hours, I was told, please stop calling us. So and to this day, I'm not really entirely sure what happened. But my takeaway from that is they had zero trust in my ability to actually move the needle for them, right? Whether that was as an individual, as a company, I don't know, but that was pretty rough. Probably the best situation I had when I think about building trust is we had an absolutely wonderful lady from the town of, well, not from the town. She was president of the soccer association with the Oyen Soccer Association. So Oyen, as Craig you so eloquently reminded me today, is the middle point between Saskatoon and Calgary.
And Brandon, I know that all too well, unfortunately.
Yes, we do.
And it is a great town. I actually didn't realize how much that little town has going on it, but they are in the middle of nowhere, right? And Dana reached out to me and said, we have a problem. Like, we've got this soccer field. It's been 11 years. We've been trying to grow grass on it. And I just said, listen, I'll come out. We'll have a look. And unfortunately for them, what ended up happening was an accountant designed and installed an irrigation system he was from Hannah. So didn't go very well. And we had to redo the whole thing. So we ended up putting a proposal in with them, and it was, hey, here's what we can do to get the irrigation. Here's what we can do to get your field green. And, Grow is going to manage your system. And we were doing it. So we threw it into the cloud. We actually threw up a couple remote cameras as well, because they're a couple hours away. And it ended up just being the best thing ever. But I think for me, that was the nice one where Dana because we were not talking small numbers. But whatever I had said and whatever we had done, it built the trust with Dana that she was like, okay, we're going to do this. And the end result has been incredible. And it allowed us to build a relationship with a great group of people in a small town. I actually ran into a guy, I think he was with the municipality of special areas or something. It was like the weirdest thing. I didn't even know that thing existed. But anyways, he backs on. He lives in Oyen and backs onto that soccer field. And he saw us working there this summer and just had glowing things to say about it. And the thing I love about small town is everybody knows everybody. So you mentioned Dana, he knew her. And now you feel like you're part of those community conversations, which is super, super great. So.
I keep hearing a common thread, Randy, of, I'll say people or your network. So my last question to wrap us up is like, frame it around this. So when you moved into your second venture, what's the one thing you wish someone in your network had asked you that would have got you to reflect a little bit more around your life design and how to retain that purpose across the thread?
Holy moly, that's a loaded one. What do I wish someone would have asked me to maintain my purpose? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, or like what would have caused you to think or reflect a little differently where you are today now that you've got 2 companies? What do you wish you would have spent a little more time thinking about before you jumped into 2?
Nothing, to be honest. Like, I know that sounds really silly, but anyone that knows me right now at this, and we go through phases in life. The phase I'm in right now is I'm jumping in with both feet to pretty much anything anyone gives me an opportunity to do. Whether it's, starting the business. Yeah, it took a little bit to figure out if this was a good idea, but it's easy to incorporate something, right? Now, long term, okay, we're a little bit on the negative side right now, but we're still having fun and we're doing it with a smile. And I still believe in it, right? Easy to pull a pin on something. You have the ugly baby. I guess you still have to acknowledge it's an ugly baby, but right now it's maybe not pretty, but it's not too ugly either. But no, I don't, if I could say one thing, it would be just encourage. I think the best thing we can do for entrepreneurs is say, take the risk. Just know it is a risk, right? Don't go in blind. I think risk is often a word maybe right now that's not given enough weight. It is scary when you do some financial stuff that puts houses on the line and everything else. But I think just encourage. I think, with these younger ones especially, you want to try it, just go try it. There is no downside to this, but be ready to work, be ready to have the time of your life, and be ready to maybe have to try it again if it doesn't work.
Yeah. So the worst thing you could do is fail.
Yeah, exactly. And fail often and fail forward, right? Like, the more often you can fail at the beginning, and that's probably the other biggest thing I've learned in this journey, is realizing that you don't get it right the first time. In fact, you shouldn't get it right the first time. That you should just try, iterate. And talk about a mind bender for a guy that's just this contractor that just give me a set of documents, give me a set of plans, I'm going to go build it. Thank you very much. See you later. On to the next. Now it's like really screwing with my mind to have to get out of this linear thinking and get into an abstract way of thinking. But we're trying.
Sounds like you're making all the right ingredients for a cool recipe.
It's a recipe, that's for sure.
Craig, closing thoughts.
Yeah, so I think what I hear is a lot of just have faith in yourself and have faith in the people that are around you and find a way to be willing to be wrong, and that's the way you're going to get ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Surround yourself with great people. We're the average of the 5 people we put around us, right? So keeping in mind that those 5 people can change. Doesn't always have to be the same 5. So, yeah.
That's great. So, yeah. Thank you so much, Randy. I think my biggest takeaway today was just remember to ask questions to a whole bunch of people and check yourself, right? I really liked your story about how your ego kind of gets inflated on that second venture along the way, and you're bringing your family and it all gets wrapped up into one. So finding a way to be in it, but also have that separation is a difficult thing. It sounds like you're walking a good balance, though.
Yeah, if you don't check your ego, someone will check it for you. So...
Usually less comfortable that way too.
Yeah, big time. Yeah. But yeah, I definitely want to thank you guys. This was a ton of fun, actually. So I feel so blessed and so fortunate to have gotten to, it started with Perfect Your Pitch last winter, and then the podcast, and now working with you, Craig, and we're going to kick Brandy's behind on Friday in the pitch contest. So
okay. It's not a contest, but if it was, I'm going to try and win.
There's a first place prize, and that means whoever's second is the first loser.
You know, as Ricky Bobby says, if you ain't first, you're last.
That's exactly it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Brandy and I are waiting to see what actually happens, because we think we have a pretty good sense of who might be in the top 3. But we think if we've worked with somebody else and we're both working with somebody, we're like, how cool would it be if the 3 we've worked with all end up in the top 3 now?
Thanks for the pressure, Craig. That's awesome.
Talking about ego, Randy, hey?
Yeah, there we go. That's why my hat size is extra large.
He's forgotten who he's working with, Brandy. The look on my face an hour and a half ago was not one of confidence, I can assure you.
It will be, though, I have no doubt.
We're going to have some fun anyways. Yeah. Awesome, you guys.
That's a goal. Perfect.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.